Focus on you until you win. A phrase that sounds bold, almost arrogant, yet at the heart of it lies the deepest humility, the commitment to transform oneself. At Stoic Diary, we begin with this clarion call. Comment the following: I am committed to my inner growth. Let those words root in your mind and echo in your actions. In these pages, we will explore how the ancient wisdom of Stoicism gives structure and discipline to that focus, guiding you when distractions roar and self-doubt whispers. You stand at a crossroads. Either you let external forces shape your mind, or you seize control and sculpt your inner citadel. The Stoics teach that what is up to us, our judgments, our intentions, our exertion, is where true power lies. Everything else lies beyond our sphere. To focus on you until you win means to dedicate your energy to what only you can govern, persistently refining that domain. In this introduction, I will frame our path. First, the meaning of winning within a Stoic lens. Second, the obstacles that will test your focus. Third, the principles you must adopt. And finally, the mindset you carry forward. Within each section lies a call, not to idle inspiration, but to steady action and resilience. The journey is long, but every step matters more than the distance. What does it mean to win? In modern life, winning is often reduced to external validation, money, fame, status. But in Stoicism, victory is internal. It is mastery over your impulses, clarity in judgment, persistence through adversity, and serenity amidst chaos. When these qualities anchor you, the shifting sands of circumstance no longer dislodge your foundation. Your win becomes a quiet, firm state of being, not a flashy trophy. To focus on you until you win means to build upward from the bedrock of character. It means turning away from impatience, envy, external approval, and casting your gaze inward. Your work lies in your own hands, your thoughts, your discipline, your integrity. That is where the battle for your life is most real. But this path is beset with obstacles. Distraction is our mortal enemy. The pull of social media, the endless barrage of news, the demands of others. Each demands your attention, hoping to fragment your concentration. Worse still is the inner drag, self-criticism, fear of failure, comparisons. The Stoics remind us that external things are indifferent. The real struggle is inside. Epictetus says that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. So often, distraction is just a narrative we tell ourselves. We allow external noise to plant urgency where none exists. We concede our attention to the trivial because we have not trained the muscle of inner resolve. But with practice, we reclaim that muscle with pauses, reflection, focus, and returning again to the chosen aim. The first principle, clarity of purpose. You must define your focal goal and tether your attention to it. Without a clear aim, your effort splinters. Write it, say it, repeat it. This is not a vague wish. It is a concrete intention anchored in reason. From this clarity, you guide every choice, yes or no, forward or hold, rest or act. Second principle, small, consistent acts. Great changes are enacted through daily increments. A single day of effort is small, but many days compounded yield transformation. The Stoics teach that virtue is formed by habits. Focus is formed the same way. Do the little discipline today, though invisible, and the invisible becomes visible over time. Third, embrace obstacles as opportunities. Stoicism does not promise ease. Rather, it trains you to see the friction as part of the forge. When challenge arises, ask, what is here for me to learn? What strength can I build? Rather than resenting the obstacle, use it to spring upward. The harder the resistance, the more you practice virtues like courage, patience, and stamina. Fourth, review and reflection. Each evening, step back. Review your day's actions, your decisions, your lapses. Ask, where did I stray? Where did I hold true? In that reflection lies your teacher. Journaling, meditating, or simply quiet thought reconnects you to your center and primes you for renewed intent tomorrow. This introduction sets the stage. You will learn not just ideas, but daily practices. We will journey from theory to execution. You will see how your internal focus transforms how you engage with work, relationships, adversity. The outer world shifts in response to the inner, and though progress is gradual, every step toward inner mastery is a step toward your win. So begin now. Hold in mind those words you commented. I am committed to my inner growth. Let them echo whenever distraction tempts you. This is not about perfection, but about persistence. Focus on you until you win, and let that be your quiet, unyielding vow. Every moment you wake up, the world throws itself at you. Messages, alerts, responsibilities, people wanting your attention. The Stoic response is not to shut the world out, but to reclaim control of where your attention flows. Focus, then, is not isolation, it is sovereignty. Focus on you until you win is not a command to ignore others. It is a command to not betray yourself. The greatest betrayal is neglecting the path you know you must walk. So many drift, not because they are weak, but because they have not decided to live deliberately. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. What distracts us is not the event, but our surrender to it." Comment the following to remind yourself daily. I refuse to be ruled by what I cannot control. You have within you a calm eye, a center of stillness untouched by chaos, but it must be cultivated. And it is cultivated not in grand acts, but in small refusals. Refusing to waste time on gossip, refusing to scroll mindlessly, refusing to compare your path to another's. Each refusal is an act of power. Each no makes your yes more meaningful. This is not about shutting the world out. It is about deciding fiercely and gently what is worthy of your presence. The Stoics understood that you only have so many breaths, so much time, and to give that away without thought is the true tragedy. They measured wealth not in coins, but in attention and integrity. What are you giving yours to? You were not made to chase every light. You were made to stand firm, to decide, to act, and to stay the course. A river that flows in every direction reaches no ocean. The person who seeks everyone's approval finds only their own silence. The focused life is the examined life, not a life of comfort, but a life of meaning. In this stage of your journey, you will face loneliness. Not social loneliness, but the solitude of self-work. When you stop distracting yourself, what rises is often uncomfortable: doubt, regret, fear. But this is good. The Stoic faces all of this with courage. You are not meant to run from the inner noise. You are meant to sit with it until it quiets under your gaze. Real growth begins when you stop escaping and start observing. When you allow discomfort to pass through you without flinching, you prove that you are stronger than it. Focus requires that you meet yourself in raw, honest silence. No filters, no masks, just you and the question, am I living according to what I claim to value? Most will never ask that. Most will fill every hour to avoid that confrontation. But you, if you are still reading, you have chosen differently. And that alone sets you apart. There is no shame in fear or failure. There's only dishonor in refusing the responsibility to try. In every moment you are called to return to what matters, to what you've chosen. Focus is not linear. Some days you will be relentless, others you will fall short. The Stoic accepts this with humility. What matters is not that you never fall, but that you return, again and again. Each return is a sharpening. Each return is a recommitment. Focus is not a trait, it is a practice. and practices are built. When people see you change, they will project their fears onto you. They will say, "You've changed," and you will have. That is the point. You were never meant to remain in the same form. The Stoic knows that what is alive grows, and what grows sheds its old skin. Let them talk. Your task is to keep becoming. The road of inner focus is lonely because it does not pander. It does not flatter your laziness. It demands something higher: discipline, patience, integrity. The results may not come today, but they will come, because nature honors consistency. What you water grows, what you starve withers, and your focused effort is the water. There will be urges to give in, to stop, to distract, and when they come, do not curse them. Welcome them. Every temptation is a training ground. Say to yourself, "This is my moment to train." Let your very cravings become reminders of your path. The Stoic turns enemies into allies, distractions into cues to refocus. One of the hardest battles will be the voice in your head that tells you you're not making progress, that you're wasting time, that others are ahead. That voice is a liar. It speaks from fear. The Stoic listens calmly, then responds with reason. I will measure my life not by speed, but by direction. Comparison is the thief of peace. Every time you compare, you abandon your own track. You look to others and forget your own lane. You dishonor your effort. Stop counting what they have. Count your days of effort. Count your moments of clarity. Count your returns. That is your true measure. Focus is not achieved, it is chosen. In every moment you decide again. Will I be reactive or intentional? Will I act from impulse or from values? This constant inner questioning is the Stoics' method. It sharpens awareness. It keeps the flame alive. Without it, your focus dims. With it, you grow brighter. Sometimes the greatest focus is in restraint, saying no when your body says yes, walking away when your pride says fight, pausing when your ego says prove. True power is in stillness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So focus on you, not selfishly, but honestly. Take care of your vessel, train your thoughts, order your priorities, and let the results be what they are. The Stoic works without attachment to the outcome. The joy is in the practice. The honor is in the trying. Your greatest challenge will not be the world. It will be your old self asking you to stay the same. That self will use every tool, nostalgia, fear, fatigue, to lure you back into comfort. But comfort is not peace. Peace is earned through alignment. You must keep choosing growth, even when it hurts. And when you do, when you keep showing up, something shifts. The chaos around you starts to quiet, not because it stopped, but because you did. You stopped reacting, you started responding, you stopped chasing, you started building, you stopped shouting, you started listening. In that space you win, not with noise, not with attention, but with still, strong presence. And from that presence, the rest of your life takes shape. Not perfectly, but truly. There's a quiet kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't post, doesn't brag. It just shows up, day after day. And that, in essence, is the Stoic definition of winning. Not the applause of others, not the visible trophies, but the steady fulfillment of what you said you would do. Consistency is not sexy, it's sacred. And if you understand this, you already understand the core of Stoic power. Comment the following to seal your mindset. My actions will speak louder than my moods. That is the daily battle, not against others, not against events, but against the waves of your own feelings. A Stoic knows that moods are like weather. They come and go, often without warning. But the disciplined person becomes like a lighthouse, fixed, unmoved, even when the sky breaks open. You can train your focus to persist through your emotions. And that is the difference between those who wish and those who achieve. the wishful act when they feel good, the disciplined act regardless. Marcus Aurelius rose each morning reminding himself that he would meet ingratitude, rudeness, and ego. He didn't expect peace from the world. He expected to bring peace into the world from himself. And how did he do that? Through intention, through preparation, through accepting each difficulty as part of his training. The phrase, "focus on you until you win," becomes a kind of armor when applied with this mindset. You don't just focus when it's easy, you focus especially when it's not. That's when the work becomes real. One of the greatest traps is waiting to feel ready. That perfect moment, that burst of motivation, that clean start. It never comes. The Stoics would call this living in impressions, a state where you're ruled by feelings instead of reason. Epictetus taught that you must act with deliberation, not just desire. Don't wait to feel aligned. Act and alignment follows. The modern world trains you to expect immediate results. Click, swipe, get. But Stoic focus is slow, like carving into stone. One small act at a time, one quiet refusal at a time, one firm choice at a time. You don't notice the change at first, but after many days, you wake up different, stronger, calmer, sharper, and you will notice something else. Others will begin to treat you differently. Not because you said anything, but because your energy shifted. You are no longer swayed, no longer over-explaining, no longer desperate to be seen. That kind of presence is unmistakable. It's not confidence, it's conviction. Conviction comes from keeping promises to yourself. You said you'd show up, and you did. You said you'd rise early, and you did. You said you'd hold your tongue, and you did. No one else needs to know. The Stoic wins in silence. The reward is internal, self-respect. Let this be your quiet revolution, not a show, not a performance, but a deep inner realignment with your values. Choose integrity over impression. Choose restraint over reaction. Choose presence over performance. These daily choices add up. Over time, they become character. Over more time, they become fate. The Stoics had a word for this process, prokopto, to make progress. Not perfection, not applause, just slow, honest progress, 1 inch closer to wisdom each day. If you can hold that aim, not for a week, not for a month, but for years, you will be unrecognizable. There will be days you regress, days you act from anger, days you lose control. Accept this. Do not use one failure as an excuse to quit. Seneca said, "No man becomes wise by chance." You will fall. The Stoic path is not clean, it's human. But what separates the practitioner from the pretender is the return. Return to your principles, return to your purpose, return to your practice over and over. This is the rhythm of mastery, not domination of others, mastery of self. And that is what focus truly means. Attention aligned with purpose, maintained across time, through storm and sun. You don't owe anyone an explanation for focusing on yourself. You don't owe the world your energy when your cup is empty. You owe yourself discipline. You owe yourself peace. And you earn both by holding the line, doing what you said you would, even when no one is watching. This kind of focus becomes identity. You no longer say, "I want to be disciplined." You are disciplined. You no longer say, "I try to stay calm." You are calm, not by force, but by practice. And that practice is what carves out your power, inch by inch, in silence. People will ask you how you changed. They will want the hack, the secret, the shortcut. But there is none. Just thousands of small decisions made in private. That is the cost. And that is why most never pay it. But you are not most. You have chosen a different road. And that road gives you something no external validation can offer, a solid, stable, unshakable self. When the noise gets louder, you get quieter. When the pressure mounts, you steady your breath. When everything spins, you remain rooted. That is Stoic strength, that is winning. So do not ask for ease, ask for endurance. Do not ask for signs, ask for resolve. Do not ask for quick wins, ask for lasting transformation. And in time, what you once thought impossible will become your new normal. The Stoic never waits for the world to change. The Stoic becomes the change in silence through action. Not for applause, not for reward, but because it is right, because it is who they choose to be. Focus on you until you win, not someday, every day. When you begin to truly focus on yourself, a strange shift occurs. At first you chase results, faster growth, quicker change, visible proof that your efforts matter. But as the days pass and your focus deepens, your hunger for outcome is replaced by something far more powerful: peace with the process. The Stoics did not seek control over what would happen. They sought control over how they would respond. Comment the following to root this into your intention. I release the outcome. I master the effort. This is the essence of Stoic detachment. Not apathy, not resignation, but an intelligent refusal to let your joy depend on results you cannot fully control. You still aim, you still act, but your fulfillment is not held hostage by what comes. Most people live like gamblers. They only feel strong when they're winning, only disciplined when success is guaranteed. But the Stoic lives like a craftsman. They show up every day to do the work. They understand that consistency, not outcome, defines character. And when failure comes, as it must, they absorb it without collapse. You will not win every time, but you can show up every time. And that is where the win truly lives. The deeper your focus, the less you rely on the world's scoreboard. You know when you've given your best. You know when you've strayed from your principles, and in that knowing, you become your own judge. Freedom begins when you stop needing constant confirmation from the outside. The praise, the likes, the metrics, they become irrelevant when your satisfaction flows from within. This isn't arrogance, it's sovereignty. A Stoic does not crave applause. A Stoic craves alignment. When your actions match your values, the rest becomes noise. But detachment does not mean you lower your standards. It means you raise your responsibility. You give everything, knowing that not everything will give back. You commit fully, even if others don't see. This is the quiet courage of the focused mind. It works in silence and lets its results echo later. There will be days when the silence is deafening. No recognition, no milestone, no visible proof of progress. Those are sacred days, because they test the purity of your intention. Will you continue when no one notices? Will you build when nothing seems to move? That is where strength is born. Epictetus taught that our task is to focus on what is up to us. Thoughts, actions, reactions. Everything else, whether people understand you, whether your plans succeed, whether the world cooperates, is out of your hands. To attach your peace to these externals is to place your joy in a storm. Focus becomes a shield against disappointment, not because it erases pain, but because it allows us to reinterpret the meaning of pain. When a person develops the ability to focus, they stop drifting from one external expectation to another and instead create a lens through which reality can be understood in a constructive way. Disappointment is inevitable in life, yet its sting depends largely on how we frame it. Through focus, every setback is stripped of its power to define us as failures and is instead reframed as part of a broader process of refinement. Focus does not deny difficulty. Rather, it redirects our perception, teaching us to see information where others see punishment. In this shift, something profound begins to happen. The ego, with its endless need for validation and control, slowly dissolves. Failure, when viewed through the lens of focus, ceases to be an endpoint. It becomes a form of data. To treat failure as data is to neutralize its emotional poison. Just as a scientist runs an experiment and records the outcome without judging themselves, so too can we live our lives as experiments in growth. If a project collapses, if a relationship falters, or if an opportunity is missed, the focused mind does not interpret the event as personal condemnation. Instead, it asks, what can be learned here? Which variables contributed to this result? How can the next attempt be adjusted to align more closely with the desired outcome? This orientation transforms failure into an ally, for every disappointment contains embedded lessons that sharpen our understanding of ourselves and the world. Setbacks, similarly, become feedback when focus is applied. Life continually communicates with us through resistance, and setbacks are one of its primary languages. When we are rejected from a job, when our creative work is overlooked, or when our plans collapse under unforeseen circumstances, the ego rushes to declare injustice. Yet focus reframes the situation. Instead of a punishment, this is feedback, information pointing us toward either a refinement of skill, a redirection of effort, or a deeper understanding of our motivations. The most successful people in any field are rarely those who have avoided failure. They are those who have developed an extraordinary tolerance for feedback. Focus allows them to digest disappointment without collapsing into despair. They see the setback not as a wall but as a signpost. This reframing dissolves the illusion that life is hostile. Many walk through the world believing that every obstacle is evidence of a universe conspiring against them. They take rejection as a personal slight, error as humiliation, and suffering as proof that they are cursed. Focus dismantles this worldview. By shifting attention from the emotional drama of failure to the informational content within it, we begin to see that life is not punishing us, but refining us. The fire of disappointment is a forge, and those who learn to stand within it without flinching emerge tempered, stronger, and freer. Each cycle of failure and adjustment is a polishing of the spirit, stripping away illusions of control, entitlement, and permanence. In this process of refinement, the ego begins to lose its grip. The ego thrives on certainty, on narratives of success and superiority, and on the illusion that outcomes define worth. When focus reinterprets failure as data and setbacks as feedback, the ego's usual narratives collapse. If failure is no longer proof of inadequacy, but instead a teacher, then the ego cannot claim it as evidence of its importance. If setbacks are not humiliations but opportunities for growth, then the ego has no stage on which to dramatize its grievances. Slowly, the ego dissolves under the pressure of reality reframed, leaving behind a quieter, more resilient sense of self that does not rise and fall with every external judgment. This dissolution of ego is not a loss, but a liberation. To live bound by ego is to live enslaved to comparison, to external validation, to the need for recognition. The ego interprets every win as proof of superiority and every loss as evidence of unworthiness. It is fragile, easily wounded, and perpetually restless. Focus frees us from this tyranny. When we channel our attention toward process instead of outcome, we begin to care less about how events inflate or deflate our self-image. What matters is not whether we are praised or criticized, whether we succeed or fail in the eyes of others, but whether we remain engaged in the act of learning, refining, and creating. The ego may clamor for attention, but focus teaches us to ignore its noise. The shield of focus does not make us invulnerable to pain. It would be naive to imagine that reinterpretation eliminates the sting of disappointment entirely. We will still feel the ache of rejection, the heaviness of loss, and the frustration of failure. But what focus does is transform the meaning of that pain. Instead of being destructive, pain becomes instructive. Instead of eroding our confidence, it deepens our wisdom. This subtle but powerful shift prevents disappointment from metastasizing into despair. Pain is not denied, but it is redirected toward growth. Just as a wound, when treated properly, heals stronger tissue, disappointment, when reframed through focus, heals into resilience. Resilience itself is a byproduct of focus. Those who scatter their attention are easily shaken by setbacks because they lack a framework for interpreting adversity. Their sense of self is fragile, contingent on fleeting circumstances. But those who have cultivated focus are anchored. They may bend, but do not break. They know that setbacks are not the final word, that failure is not a verdict but a variable. Their resilience is not rooted in blind optimism, but in disciplined perspective. They are not stronger because they feel less pain, but because they give that pain a purpose. Over time, this perspective reshapes identity itself. To live with focus is to live as an apprentice of life rather than as a victim of it. Each day becomes an experiment in becoming, each challenge an opportunity to refine. The self is no longer constructed around the fragile scaffolding of ego, but around the enduring practice of learning. In this state, success is not defined by external validation, but by the depth of engagement with the process of growth. Disappointment cannot destroy a person who no longer relies on outcomes to define their worth. Such a person walks through the world with a quiet confidence, not because they expect life to be easy, but because they know that even in difficulty, meaning can be drawn. This orientation toward focus requires discipline. The default mode of the mind is distraction, ego, and drama. It takes effort to hold steady attention in the face of disappointment, to resist the temptation to collapse into victimhood or self-pity. Yet the very act of practicing focus is itself an antidote to despair. Each time we consciously reframe a failure as data, we weaken the hold of ego. Each time we interpret a setback as feedback, we loosen the chains of fear. With repetition, this becomes second nature. Focus becomes not just a shield, but a way of inhabiting reality that turns every experience, whether pleasant or painful, into fuel for refinement. Ultimately, the gift of focus is freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of ego, freedom from the sting of disappointment, freedom from the illusion that life must conform to our expectations in order for us to be whole. In the space left behind by ego's dissolution, a deeper self emerges, one that is not obsessed with control, but with participation, not with validation, but with growth. Disappointment does not vanish, but it loses its ability to paralyze. Pain does not disappear, but it is infused with meaning. Life itself does not become easier, but it becomes infinitely richer. For every moment, whether marked by triumph or setback, becomes part of the great experiment of becoming. Focus, then, is not a denial of reality, but a deep embrace of it. It is the recognition that we cannot control outcomes, but we can control interpretation. It is the discipline of turning failure into data, setback into feedback, and pain into refinement. And it is, above all, the patient work of dissolving the ego so that we may step into a freer, more resilient way of being. When we live with focus, disappointment no longer defines us. Instead, it shapes us, polishes us, and prepares us for the next iteration of who we are meant to become. You stop needing to be seen as great. You start needing only to be great, quietly, within yourself. You stop chasing comparisons. You stop tallying victories. You just work, day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice, until the process becomes the prize. The Stoic sees each day as a lifetime, not something to rush through, but something to honor. You no longer say, "Someday I'll be better." You become better today, in how you speak, how you act, how you think. That is where focus meets presence, and presence is power. You might ask, how do I know if I'm making progress if I let go of results? The answer is in the feeling of self-trust. Do you trust yourself more now than before? Are your thoughts calmer? Are your reactions wiser? Are your values clearer? These are your true metrics. The world will try to measure you with numbers, followers, money, speed. But you must measure yourself by something deeper. Consistency, discipline, resilience, honesty. These traits don't fluctuate. They don't crash. They don't expire. They endure because they are built, not bought. There's a stillness that comes when you stop begging for outcomes. When you say, I will give everything I have and whatever comes I will remain rooted. That stillness is rare. It cannot be faked. It's the result of facing your fears, of loss, of failure, of obscurity, and realizing they do not define you. In this mindset, you are dangerous in the best way, not reckless, but unshakable. People sense that they cannot manipulate you. You are not moved by praise or blame. You are governed by principles, not pressure, and this creates an energy of calm leadership, even if you lead no one but yourself. It's tempting to look around and compare your pace, but the Stoic sees every person as a unique vessel, on a unique journey. Focus on you, refine your lane. You are not behind. You are precisely where you must be to face what you must learn. Accept this, and you reclaim your power. You may not control the tide, but you control the boat. You may not control the weather, but you control the sail. Let that be enough. Let that be your focus. Your task is not to predict every outcome, but to prepare for every outcome. And when it comes, success or failure, you stand ready. Do not mistake detachment for weakness. It is a higher form of strength. It is the ability to love the work more than the reward, to value the process more than the praise, to keep showing up, not for fame, but for fulfillment. In this space, there is peace. Not because life becomes easier, but because your heart becomes steadier. You don't react, you respond. You don't cling, you contribute. You don't strive for more, you strive for better. And better is always within reach. This is what it means to focus on you until you win. Not until the world claps, not until others approve, but until your soul whispers, this is who I'm meant to be. That voice, that alignment is the only validation you need. In the end, when all the noise fades and the lights dim, you are left with one thing, yourself. Not the curated version others see, not the mask you wear in public or the persona you build to survive in society, but the raw, unguarded self that emerges when you are alone. That self is the one you wake up with every morning, before you check your phone, before you put on your clothes, before you step into the world. It is the self that you wrestle with in silence, the one who knows the truth behind every decision, every compromise, every fear, and every small act of courage. You cannot lie to this self. You cannot charm it, deceive it, or distract it with applause. It knows when you have abandoned your own standards, and it knows when you have fought to uphold them. It remembers every time you betrayed yourself, and it remembers every time you rose from the ashes of disappointment to stand taller than before. This confrontation is the real battlefield, and it is where the decisive victories and defeats of a human life occur, long before the world ever takes notice. It is easy to live in the illusion that the external world is the measure of our success. Society applauds the visible: wealth, status, achievement, recognition. The noise of the crowd is intoxicating, and the lights of validation are blinding. But the truth is that all of this fades. The applause dies down, the spotlight shifts, the achievements that once seemed monumental are quickly forgotten, and the world turns its attention elsewhere. What remains always is that inner self who has witnessed every step of your journey. That inner self cannot be impressed by trophies or titles if it knows that shortcuts, cowardice, or betrayals made them possible. Conversely, it can stand in quiet pride even when the world ignores you, because it knows the integrity of your struggle, the honesty of your effort, and the resilience with which you met adversity. This is why the inner self is the ultimate judge, harsher than the crowd, yet also more generous, for it is the only one who knows the full truth. The silence of the inner world is both a refuge and a crucible. When the distractions of daily life are stripped away, when there are no screens to scroll through, no voices to drown out thought, you meet yourself in unfiltered clarity. For some, this is unbearable. They will do anything to avoid that confrontation. They will overwork, overconsume, overstimulate themselves because the idea of sitting with their own truth is too heavy. But for those willing to endure the silence, to actually wrestle with the self that emerges there, the silence becomes transformative. It is in that solitude that you take stock of your choices, not through the lens of excuses or appearances, but through the brutal honesty of memory. Did you show up when it mattered? Did you tell the truth when it was hard? Did you keep your promises, not to others, but to yourself? The answers to these questions, whispered in the quiet of your soul, determine whether you feel peace or torment when the world fades away. This inner battlefield is not a one-time war, but a lifelong campaign. Each day brings small skirmishes, moments where you either align with your values or betray them. Every decision, no matter how small, tips the scales. Do you follow through on what you said you would do, even when no one is watching? Do you take responsibility for your mistakes, or do you blame circumstances and others? Do you nurture discipline when comfort calls louder? These decisions are rarely glamorous, and no one applauds them in the moment, but they accumulate into something profound: self-respect. And self-respect is not something you can purchase or perform. It is earned in the quiet, invisible battles you fight with yourself. Without it, all external success feels hollow. With it, even in obscurity, life carries a dignity no one can take away. Failure in this inner arena is brutal because you cannot hide from it. You know when you let yourself down. You know when fear dictated your actions, when laziness won over discipline, when anger overcame compassion. The inner self records these defeats with a clarity that no amount of denial can erase. Yet this same battlefield is also the birthplace of redemption. Every time you rise again after failing yourself, every time you recommit to being honest, disciplined, or brave, you regain ground. The victories may be small and unseen, but they matter immensely, for they rebuild trust with yourself. And that trust is everything. To live without self-trust is to walk through life on unstable ground, always suspicious of your own resolve. But to rebuild it, even slowly, is to walk with a quiet power, knowing that you can rely on yourself when it matters most. This is why the deepest victories happen long before the world notices. Long before the promotion, the applause, or the recognition. The real triumph is in the mornings you chose discipline over comfort, in the nights you chose truth over deception, in the countless invisible moments where you acted in alignment with who you want to become. By the time the world sees a victory, the inner battle has already been fought and won. Conversely, when the world celebrates someone whose inner battles were lost, the recognition feels hollow, and often their life unravels despite appearances. You cannot fake inner victory for long. The truth eventually leaks out, because the inner self cannot be indefinitely silenced. This battlefield is demanding because it strips away illusions. In the external world, you can rationalize your choices, present curated versions of yourself, and manipulate perception. Inside, none of that works. There are no filters, no edited narratives, no applause to distract from the truth. The self you face in silence is mercilessly honest. It knows when you took the easy way out. It knows when you broke promises. It knows when you chose fear over courage. This honesty is what makes the inner battle both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because you cannot escape yourself. Liberating because once you accept the truth, you can no longer live in self-deception. You are forced to confront what must change, and in that confrontation lies the possibility of transformation. The greatest strength you can build is not the strength to dominate others, but the strength to master yourself. Mastery of the inner self means that when all noise fades and the lights dim, you can sit in silence with peace rather than regret. It means that you have fought enough small battles faithfully that you trust yourself to face the larger wars of life. It means that your victories are not contingent on recognition because you already know their worth. This strength is unshakable because it is not dependent on circumstances. External success can vanish, relationships can shift, fortunes can collapse, but no one can take away the dignity of a self that has been disciplined, honest, and resilient. This truth reframes the way we see life itself. We are conditioned to chase external validation, but the deeper purpose lies in cultivating an inner life strong enough to withstand both triumph and tragedy. When the world notices, it is merely an echo of battles already won in silence. When the world ignores, it does not diminish the dignity of those victories. In fact, often the most meaningful transformations go entirely unseen by others. A person who overcomes addiction, who rebuilds trust with themselves, who learns to forgive, may never be celebrated on a stage, yet their victory is no less monumental. The world measures differently than the soul. The soul knows the cost of each step, the weight of each choice, the depth of each battle. To live with this awareness is to live with a profound sense of responsibility. You realize that the greatest betrayal is not of others, but of yourself. And the greatest loyalty is also to yourself, not to the ego, but to the deeper self that longs for integrity. Every action either strengthens or weakens this loyalty. Over time, your life becomes a reflection of whether you honored or abandoned this responsibility. And when all is said and done, when the noise of the world has died away, the only verdict that matters is the one delivered by the self you must face in silence. Thus, the real battlefield is not out there, in the competitions of society or the judgments of others. The real battlefield is within, in the daily confrontation with yourself. It is here that you win or lose long before the world notices. It is here that character is forged, trust is built, and dignity is either secured or squandered. And it is here, in the quiet crucible of the inner life, that true freedom is found. The freedom of knowing that when the lights dim, when the applause fades, and when you are left alone with yourself, you can meet your own eyes without flinching. To focus on you until you win is not a slogan. It's a vow, a sacred oath to stop outsourcing your responsibility and start living with intention. It's a declaration that says, no more hiding, no more blaming, no more waiting. From this moment forward, you stand guard at the gate of your mind. You honor your values, you protect your time, you train your emotions. Comment this now to make it real. I am my own responsibility. Simple, powerful, stoic. This is not a path for those who seek comfort. This is a path for those who seek freedom. Not freedom from hardship, but freedom from slavery to impulse, to distraction, to approval, to excuses. Real freedom begins with ownership, and ownership begins with focus. When Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, he still reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Imagine that. With all his power, he still practiced humility, still practiced discipline, still practiced presence. What excuse do we have then? What illusion tells us we have time to waste, moods to indulge, promises to delay? The Stoic sees clearly, time is not promised. Your future is not guaranteed, but your effort is always yours. Right now, you are alive. Right now, you can act. And so you do. You rise when it's easier to sleep. You speak with kindness when you could retaliate. You pause before reacting. You focus when others scroll. Not because you want to appear strong, but because you refuse to be weak. The Stoic path isn't glamorous, but it's honest. And that honesty will carry you through every storm. You begin to learn that the world does not owe you clarity, peace, or success, but you owe it to yourself to bring those things into your life. You do not demand less hardship. You train for more strength. You do not beg for peace. You build it one thought at a time. Your progress may not be obvious to others, but inside it is undeniable. Your breath becomes steadier, your decisions more aligned, your purpose more unshakable. You've stopped chasing outcomes. You've started mastering effort. And that shift, that one shift, changes everything. There's a dignity in walking this path, a quiet confidence that no one can fake. It's in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you no longer flinch in the face of difficulty. You've faced yourself, and that is the hardest battle of all. The Stoics remind us, adversity reveals character, and so you welcome adversity not as a curse, but as a tool. Every struggle becomes a test, not of your strength, but of your principles. Will you fold, or will you return to your values? Every return is a deeper root. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer panic, you plan. You no longer distract, you observe. And this discipline frees you, because discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. You've stopped letting your life be ruled by the winds of emotion and now sail with the compass of reason. You have become dangerous to your old self. The one who procrastinated, who blamed, who wished. That version is fading. Each disciplined choice buries it. Each calm decision resurrects a new you. Not louder, not flashier, but real, grounded, present. You do not brag about your growth. You live it. You let your consistency speak louder than your ambition. And people will notice. Not because you try, but because you no longer need their attention. You've found something deeper, something they may never understand, something that cannot be bought, copied, or rushed. It's not motivation, it's alignment. You begin to see your goals not as escapes from pain, but as expressions of principle. You work not to escape hardship, but to honor discipline. You rise early, not to impress, but to prepare. You train not for image, but for strength. You learn not for applause, but for clarity. And in all this, there is a still joy, a subtle confidence. You're not there yet, but you know you're on your way. And that is enough. That is the win. Not arrival, direction, not perfection, persistence, not fame, focus. When others ask you how you did it, what will you say? You won't point to hacks, you'll point to habits. You won't mention luck, you'll mention labor. You'll tell them, I focused on me every day, especially the hard days, until I couldn't be ignored, until I couldn't be shaken, until I couldn't be stopped. That's what focus on you until you win really means. It means owning your mornings. It means protecting your evenings. It means speaking less and doing more. It means choosing quality over quantity, effort over ease, inner wealth over outer noise. It means learning to sit with discomfort and not flinch. It means becoming the person you promised yourself you'd be. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll look in the mirror and smile. Not because you've reached the summit, but because you never gave up the climb. You honored your path. You carried your fire. You stood your ground, and you did it for you. So to you, the one watching this right now on Stoic Diary, remember this. You don't have to rush. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin. And never stop returning to what matters. Focus on you until you win.